Let's talk about potential stimulus money for the American people. Just recently, former President Trump confirmed that the White House is actively considering a rebate program for Americans. Since then, I've been flooded with questions. Is this really happening? Earlier today, I mentioned that a full-scale stimulus or rebate check for everyone is highly unlikely. Why? Because Congress is extremely divided right now, and passing such a measure would be a huge uphill battle. Now, let me play you a short clip from Fox News, where Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, was asked what he thinks about the idea of giving out rebates. Kevin O'Leary: No, I think most taxpayers would prefer using any excess capital to reduce the national debt. That's far more important, especially with interest rates this high. The longer rates stay up, the more it costs taxpayers just to service that debt, much of which is owned by foreign nations. Let's break that down. What Kevin is saying makes sense. Higher interest rates equals higher costs to manage our debt. And much of that debt is owned by other countries. If we issue rebate checks, there's a risk of fueling inflation, which would likely keep interest rates high, and that, in turn, raises our debt servicing costs. One economist recently warned, sending out rebate checks could be one of Trump's biggest mistakes. It risks triggering more inflation, which would keep interest rates elevated, and that would cost taxpayers even more in the long run. So, instead of handing out cash for people to spend on TVs, furniture, cars, or crypto, many experts believe it would be smarter to apply that money toward paying down the national debt. But here's where it gets interesting. President Trump didn't just mention a rebate. He's previously floated another bold idea: eliminating income tax altogether, especially for people earning under $150,000. How? By replacing income tax revenue with tariffs. Let's rewind to April 15th. A woman asked Trump if tariffs could replace income tax. Here's what he said: "You're the only one who's asked me that. But yes, there's a chance." Back in the late 1800s to early 1900s, tariffs were our only source of federal revenue, and our country was incredibly wealthy during that time. Trump and his team have suggested that tariff revenue could be used to eliminate income tax, starting with those making under $150,000. In fact, as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, seniors over age 65 were given a $6,000 enhanced deduction. That, combined with existing deductions, means millions of seniors now pay no income tax at all. And let's be honest, a permanent end to income tax would have a much bigger impact on our bank accounts than a one-time $1,500 or even $5,000 check. The numbers behind the tariff plan: let's look at the math. In 2024, the US brought in $2.4 trillion from income taxes. In 2022, we imported around $4 trillion worth of goods. So to fully replace income tax with tariffs, we'd need an average tariff of 60% on all imports: China, Mexico, Canada, Europe, and beyond. That's a steep number. But if we heavily tax imports from the countries we buy most from, especially China, it might be feasible, at least in part. So what's really going to happen? Trump's latest comments suggest this rebate or stimulus plan won't be as simple as mailing checks to everyone. The US can't afford it. More likely, we could see targeted tax relief, perhaps in the form of income tax elimination for working Americans earning under a certain threshold, like $75,000. This would reward people who are actively working and contributing to the economy. And remember, this is an election setup. As we head into 2026 midterms, Republicans need to show voters they can deliver relief, especially now, as prices continue rising and families are struggling. Will we see a DOGE dividend? A rebate check? Or a sweeping income tax cut? Time will tell. As always, I'll keep you updated with the latest info as this develops.